Hello and welcome to Algebra. Today we're going to learn about function notation. Okay, so function notation is something that looks like this, okay? And it's got different parts to it. Here are the parts to it. This looks very confusing, but it's really not that confusing, all right? So this whole thing is called, this is the name of the function, this f, all right? Sometimes you could have different letters, like down here I see we have an h. Sometimes it could be a g, it could be whatever letter, but that's the name of the function, okay? Inside the parentheses, we have our input, which is our x value. Okay, this whole thing here, we read this as f of x, right? F of x, that is our output, our range. So this f of x, right? This f of x is just a fancy way of saying y. So this means the exact same thing as y. You've seen this equation type thing before, where it was y equals 3x plus 4. This means the exact same thing as this. F of x equals 3x plus 4. This and this are the same thing. Woo, woo. They're just shown different ways. And the reason why they do this f of x thing is because if you're graphing more than one line at a time, and they all have y, it's hard to find it, right? If you change the name of the function, you can graph things on the same graph, and you can have different functions there. Okay, so that's why that's there, all right? Okay, and then this right here, this 3x plus 4 is the function. That's how we find our output. Okay? Okay, so that is, this is function notation, okay? So f can change to a different letter because every equation can have a different name, all right? We could call it h of x, we can call it g of x, etc. Function notation uses f of x instead of y. That's what we just talked about here. It means the exact same thing, okay? And it's read f of x or f at x, all right? And then we usually use f at x when we're looking at a graph. And we'll talk about more of that in a second, okay? So let's see how we can do this function notation. Okay, so it says example, f of x equals 3x minus 2. Find f3. F of 3, that means we're going to replace each x with a 3 and evaluate. Okay, so we want to know that this function is of f of 3. So what I got to do is I'm going to plug in, whenever I see an x, I'm going to plug in a 3. And I'm going to solve it now. So 3 times 3 would give me 9. 9 minus 2 would give me 7. So f of 3 equals 7. So just like this says f of x, right? This x right here, just like when they say here, this is f of 3, they replaced that x with a 3. You see that? This was an x, they took out the x and they put it in a 3. So what that means is in our function, we take out the x and we plug in a 3. That's all we're doing, okay? And this is f of 3 equals 7, okay? And that means if we were going to plot this on an ordered pair, that 3 is our x value, and that 7 is our y value. So that would be 3 over 7, or 3, 7. Okay? All right, let's do a couple of the practice ones. All right, this one says find f of negative 3. F of negative 3. So I'm going to plug in, for x, I'm going to plug in negative 3. And then I'm going to figure out what it is. So a negative and a negative make a positive, so that's going to make it positive 3. 3 plus 7 equals 10. So our answer would be 10. Same thing here, f of negative 2. So I'm going to look for the f function, and I'm going to plug in negative, and then for x, I'm going to plug in negative 2, and it's still plus 7. 2 negatives make a positive. 2 plus 7 gives me 9. So f of negative 2 equals 9. All right? Go ahead, pause the video, try these two on your own, see how you do. All right, hopefully you pause the video and you try these on your own. So this one says f of 0, so that means they replaced this x with 0, so I'm going to plug in 0 in for x. So that means it's negative 0 plus 7. Well, negative 0 is just still 0. 0 plus 7 is 7. All right, the next one says f of 3, so I plug in 3 for my x. Negative 3 plus 7 gives me 4. Okay? So that's how we do that. All right, so like this example says h of negative 4. So I see I have my h function up here. So that means they replaced this x with negative 4. So inside here, I'm going to replace my x with negative 4. Remember, we always substitute in with parentheses, right? So negative 4 squared gives me 16. 16. And then 2 times 16 gives me 32. So that would be 32. That's my answer. All right, here's another one. Let's try this one. So they replaced that x with negative 3. So I'm going to plug in negative 3 in for x. All right, negative 3 squared is 9, because negative times a negative is a positive. 2 times 9 is 18. Okay? All right, pause the video, see if you can do these two. Unpause it when you're done, see how you did. Okay, hopefully you paused the video, and hopefully you got your answers. Let's go over it real quick. All right, so they replaced this x with 6 now. So I replace the x in the function with 6. 6 squared is 36. 2 times 36 will give me 72. On that last one, they replaced x with 5, so I'm going to plug 5 in. 5 squared is 25. 2 times 25 is 50. All right, so all we do is the number inside the parentheses is our input. That's our input, and our input is our x values. So that means I'm replacing the x with whatever they told me my input is. All right, so that number inside is our x value. The number on the outside is our y value. So if I wrote this as an ordered pair, this example, it would be 5, 50, right? That's my ordered pair. My x values inside the parentheses, my input, my y values outside the parentheses, my output. Okay, so that is function notation. All right, so let's look at this. It says, given h of negative 3 equals 8, answer the following. All right, so what is the input? Well, the input is inside the parentheses. So my inside parentheses is negative 3. All right, what is my output? Well, that's the number on the outside of the parentheses. That is 8. All right, so what would that be as an ordered pair? Well, my input is my x, so my x is negative 3. My output is my y. My y is 8, so it'd be negative 3, 8. Ooh. Okay. Let's see here. Given g of 2 equals negative 1, answer the following. What is my input? Well, my input is the number inside the parentheses. So my input is 2. What is my output? Well, that's the number on the outside of the parentheses. That is negative 1. So what is my ordered pair? Well, my input is my x. My x is 2 then. My output is my y. My y is negative 1 then. So it would be 2, negative 1. Okay? All right. Let's try this one. It says, which of the following functions will result in f of negative 3 equals 14? So that means we got to plug in negative 3 into each of these and figure out what it is. All right, go ahead, pause the video, see if you can figure it out on your own. Unpause it when you're done to get the answer. Okay, so all you had to do was take this value here, this negative 3, and since they replaced that f of x, that x with negative 3, we take out our x and we plug in negative 3. Remember, we always substitute with parentheses. So you can plug it in and then do order of operations, or you can plug it in and use Desmos like I did. And we wanted it to say, it says which one equals 14? Well, you can see that the first one equaled negative 4. Right here. So that is not our answer, so we know that's not an answer. All right, the next one equaled 14, so that is an answer. All right, C, absolute value is 17 plus x. Absolute value is 17 plus negative 3 gave me 14, so that's an answer. The last one, I plugged in negative 3 and I got 14. So that's also an answer, okay? So all you're doing is you're taking this value that is our input, it's inside the parentheses, and we're replacing it with our x, because x means our input, all right? All right, let's keep going on and see what it looks like on a graph. Okay, so this one says, finding f of x graphically. Find f at negative 1. So f at negative 1, that's how we want to read it when we are on a graph, okay? So what I want to do is I want to go to my x, because this is the same thing, remember, of f of x. So they took out the x and they replaced it with negative 1. So I want to see where my x value is negative 1. So I'm going to go over to negative 1 on my x, and then I'm going to go up until I see it where it hits the graphed line. And I see it hits right there. Boom. And so that is my y value there is 3. So the negative 1 is replacing the x. All right. So what is my y value there? Well, f at negative 1 equals 3, because that is my y value. Another way you could see this is an ordered pair. It could be negative 1, because that's my x value, and my y value is 3. Okay? Using the same graph, find the following. All right, so let's look here. F of negative 2. So remember, they took out the x and replaced it with negative 2. So I'm going to go over to my negative 2, and then I'm going to go up to see where it hits on the graph. And I see it hits on the graphed line right there. So what is my y value there? Well, my y value there is 4. So this answer would be 4. All right, this one says f at negative 3. Well, f at negative 3. So remember, this is my x value. So I go over to negative 3 on my x, and I'm going to go up to see where it hits my graphed line. And I see it hits right here. And that is at 3. So this one is at 3. It says, write this answer as an ordered pair. Well, my ordered pair, remember this is my x value, my input inside the parentheses is my x. And then what I find is my y value. I'm looking for my y value, which we got was 3. All right, let's see this last one, f at -4. So I'm going to go to my x at -4 and see where it crosses the graph line, and it crosses right there. Well, what's my y value there? Well, my y value there is 0, so this would be 0. So if I wanted to write that as an ordered pair, it would be -4, 0. Okay, so the number inside the parentheses is your x value. All right, so that's important to remember, your input. All right, let's keep going. All right, we have a new graph down here. I'm gonna do this first one together with you and see if you can figure out the next ones. All right, so remember this is the same thing as f of x, right? Or f at x. Okay, so they replace the x with -1. So I go over to -1 and I'm gonna go see where it hits my graph line. And I see it hits down here. And my y value there is -3. Okay, pause the video, see if you can do these 3 on your own. Unpause it when you're done so you can check your work. All right, hopefully you pause the video and hopefully you tried these on your own. All right, so let's see this next one, f at 0. So I'm gonna go to my x value at 0 and I see it crosses the line right there. And that means my y value is also 0. F at 1, I'm gonna go over to my x is 1 and see where it hits my graph. And I see it's right there, which means my y is also 1. F at 2.5, well 2.5 is halfway between 2 and 3, right? So I go halfway between 2 and 3 and see where it hits, and I see it hits right there, all right? And that is my y value is -1, okay? So the number inside the parentheses is your input. Your input is your x value. So you're gonna look for your x value and figure out what your y value is. So you just go to your x value, like this one here, -2.5, I go to my 2.5, and I see where it goes on the graph line, and I'm looking to see what my y value is, my output. Okay? All right, here's a challenge one. Okay, so we did a bunch of input ones, right? Earlier, I told you this f of x. This f of x means the exact same thing as y, right? So what I have to do, if you ever see this, is I'm replacing this whole f of x with this 12. So I would rewrite this as 12, because I'm replacing this f of x equals 3x minus 6. And then I'm solving for x, because the output, the number on the outside of parentheses, is your y value. So now they gave us the y value, and we got to figure out what the x value is. So to do that, we got to solve an equation, right? So we would do plus 6, 12 plus 6 is 18, and then we would divide by 3, because I'm left with 3x. Divide by 3, and then x equals, what is 18 divided by 3 is 6. So that would be 6. So another way we can write this would be f of 6 equals 12. Or we could write it as an ordered pair. 6 is my x, 12 is my y. Okay? So key things to remember. Number inside the parentheses is your x value. All right? Remember that and you should be fine. All right, if you ever have any questions, please ask a teacher. See you next time. Bye-bye!